Okay, hello. My
Hello,
name is Sarvan.
my name is Turan.
Okay, Turan, how are you?
Doing well, what about you?
Okay, I'm fine. And actually, I am very excited because we just finished a very interesting course. Um, so actually, this course was like completely new for me. I have like more than 13 years like experience as a teacher, but so I have never thought about that adults are different than the students or minor students. And this course, I strongly believe that. So at the end of the discourse, my perspective, like to the students, like completely changed. Now I have like a clear like definition. Now I am very good at like differentiating like adults, how adults are different than the minor students.
Mm.
So what do you think? So how are your feelings?
My feelings actually, I had known that adults were a little different from young learners, but I didn't know what is that exact difference between adults and young learner learning process. And after learning this, after actually doing this course, I found out that the reason why the adults don't like to being directed by others is the fact that we are more likely to be self-directed. And we
Mhm.
think we're adults, we have an autonomy, and we like to direct, to contribute to the process. And I found out that it was because we are more likely to be self-directed, independent learners.
I think this adult learning, I believe that so it is very important. It has a very significant place like in the education, but unfortunately, so it is always understated. It never emphasized, at least in like in our education setting. Do you remember like in the beginning of the course, like we talked about like the knowledge society. So what's the knowledge society?
Yeah, yeah.
So especially like in this like modern world, like adult learning bears a huge significance because so everything is changing continuously, and so we cannot approach to the education like the same way that we did like 10 years ago or 20 years ago. And especially there's a saying that like today's students, they are preparing to the professions that they don't exist yet. And this is also same for the adult learners. Like, so even if you graduated from one of the best universities, but this is never enough because every day, like the information, so is increasing, like approaches, like every day, there are new innovations, like new innovations. That's why it doesn't matter. So in which sphere you are a teacher or engineer or like health worker, so we have to like improve yourself continuously. So that's why so adult learning is very very important, and it deserves like a real attention by the educators.
Yeah, I strongly agree with the fact that in our knowledge society, at the universities, educational institutions, the importance of adult learning principles are a little underestimated. I graduated from a university with bachelor's degree in teaching, but I had never thought about it. Nobody differentiated adults like young learners, children, or like adults. When they say the term learner, the first thing came to our mind was a student who is between 6 to 18. We have never thought about it. That's why it was completely new for me as well.
One thing, so one of my most important takeaway from this course, it also helped me like to focus on my own learning because so I want to like approach to the questions like I want to reflect, so here from two different perspectives. One as an educator that from time to time, I also work so with the adults, and it's also part of my job here. And at the same time, so I think that I'm a lifelong learner, and also I'm going to approach to this reflection from a learner's perspective. And also, before like understanding like the essence of the discourse, so we need to like fully understand so what is adult and what is learning. So I think first we need to find answer like to these questions. What's adult, or who is adult for you? What do you think?
For me, actually, not for me, according to most of the literature, and when I look at the definition of the word, adult is a person who has a right to choose. I think in our country, the person who has a right to choose to take part in elections are the ones who are 18 years old. And I think starting from 18 years, we can accept people like an adult. I think that way. What do you think?
Mhm. Well, so we can like give different definitions. So we can like define who is adult. So from age perspective, like from moral perspective, cultural perspective. But this is my personal belief. So adult is the person, regardless of his or her age or background. So adult is the person who has developed a self-consciousness, like awareness. If So if you okay, if you think that if you are ready enough, like to take control on your own learning process, then you can consider it as adult. So, for example, so I want to give example here. So I know someone. So she just attended like to one of the like master program at ADA University. Um, Actually, she approached me so for some advice, and I asked like, why do you want to study in this area? Uh, Actually, she has no answer. Like, she doesn't even know why she is like, why she wants to like study at ADA, like one of these education programs. And this person is like over 23. I mean, biologically, she's an adult. And also, so a few years ago, so I had a student. He was 15 or 16, something. But that student, he had a very clear, like, plan about his future. Like he came, so with a clear plan that so he wants to study medicine, and he wants to study medicine at Turkey Hacettepe University, and he had his own like reasons why he wants to study there. And this student had a very clear plan that I need to take like this exam and that exam. I need that score from like SAT and that score from IELTS. But for me, when I compare like these two students, so even though the second one biologically is not adult, so in my opinion, he was more adult than the first one because so he knew what he wants to do.
Okay, from actual psychological point of view, you're right. One of them is more like adult, another one is the first one is not like an adult. But when it comes to learning preferences, learning style, does it change? Like the first one's learning style is different from the second one's learning style, or not? I think they are the same despite those things you mentioned. I think they learn exactly the same, not exactly, almost the same way. Like they learn when they need. They are problem oriented learners. They learn the thing they need. Don't you think like that? Could you please unmute yourself?
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's right. So what else? So at this point, okay, like the second part of the question. So what's learning? So what is knowledge actually? We talk about adult learning. So we already have some idea about who are adults, and what is the learning process in your opinion? So when do we learn?
According to different theories, learning is defined differently as well. But what I like most is behavioristic point of view. Learning is the thing that we observe, that we can observe. It's an observable change. When people learn, we have to observe that change. We have to observe that knowledge, that learning process. I think without an observable outcome, it's not learning. The basic example, we are teaching actually English, our students are learning English. If I can observe what I teach in their speech, it's a real learning for me. Otherwise, it's just memorizing. It's not as sufficiently applied as to call as a real learning.
Yes, that's interesting. And also, so if we look at the theory of learning, so this also exists in one of our books. So there are different definitions about learning. So for example, I remember it was in the very first lesson. So we talked about different epistemological perspectives, like what is Aristotle's definition of learning, Plato, and Confucius. I remember that, for example, for Aristotle, he defines his approach into learning process from more the perspective of empiricism. Like he believes that so we learn through our five senses, like as you mentioned.
Yeah.
So in order to learn, first we need to observe, and we need to experience, and we need to assess, and we need to test. And then, so Plato is more, his perspective is more like rationalism is irrational. I mean, he believes that, so even if the learning is innate, it occurs inside us. So if we, our learning is independent from our observations and our experiences. But again, so not as an educator, but as an adult learner, I mostly agree with the perspectives of the Confucius because he believes that he approaches learning from moral perspective, like more ethical perspective and moral perspective. So if the knowledge that you acquired impacts, let's say that your character, if it causes some changes in your ethics and characters. So I think this perspective is close to me. So as a learner, as an educator. So I believe, especially adult learners.
Could you please say it again? I couldn't hear the last part.
At the Confucius part.
Yes.
The Confucius approaches to learning from moral perspective. So whenever you learn something new, so you need to stop and reflect, like how it positively affected your character, what kind of changes it led in your character. And especially as an adult learner, not educator, I think this is more important for me. Like, okay, I am going to learn this, but how it is going to affect me, how it is going to affect my future behaviors or my future decisions, and that's it. But of course, as I said, we can. But from educator's perspective, I agree with Aristotle's perspective that the knowledge should be the first observe, and we need to experience, and we need to test it. We need to be more empirical, rather than more rational.
Yeah, I think as an educator, we have to consider almost all the perspectives because we are working with learners, and learners are really diverse. So we should consider all of them to meet all their preferences. Maybe some of them considers learning, as you mentioned, that happens through all senses. Some maybe thinks that it happens through one sense or sensory learning or something like that. So we educators, I think, should be aware of all of them, almost all of them, and consider, keep in mind that learners are diverse, really diverse.
And also, so during the course, we talked about very interesting adult learning theories. So we talked about experiential learning, and actually we had one assignment in experiential learning. What's your opinion? So what is your impression about these theories?
Experiential learning, I think, is the one that adult learners are encounter very often, because adult learners have more experience in contrast to children, young learners. Actually, it's not the theory that caught my attention most. The only thing I remember about the theory is we had an experience as a prior knowledge, and it's good to activate before we start learning, or during the process we remember something and it helped us to learn better, or sometimes it may become a barrier. Let's say I'm a math learner, and in my school year I had a difficulty with some topics, and again it may hinder my learning. It can like affect my level of motivation, or vice versa. Let's say I had really nice experiences with some math topics, and if I start learning it again, it can be a great motivation for me. At that time I did very well in this part. It's what I remember and what I understood.
So actually, like every theory has its uses in certain contexts. So again, as a learner, from a adult learner's perspective, I feel myself more close to transformative learning theory, because so this theory like emphasizes that transformative experience like should challenge like your point of view, your values and your beliefs, and so the learners should like critically reflect like on the things that he or she just learned. Actually, this is like closer like to the Confucius like the theory, like his opinion about. But again, from educator's perspective, I prefer like to employ experiential learning, because adults, so they like to experiment. So actually, they don't want to like study, like dive into books so for a long hours, but they prefer mostly hands-on experiences. Like they want to touch, they want to feel, they want to sense, and they want to see the result, like the outcome of their learning process. So that's why, again, as a learner, adult learning, transformative learning, I like it more. And so in my own learning process, I would like to apply it in my own learning process. But as an educator, so it is experiential learning. I find it very like effective.
Yeah, while I was going through the transformative learning theory, I realized that it's sometimes difficult to apply this theory, because it requires learners to digest the knowledge and transform it. It requires huge amount of time, and which is sometimes impossible in the learning, like educational institutions, to have more time, that more time to digest the information. Even we adult learners at the university, we are doing a master's degree, but sometimes we don't have enough time to digest the information. For me, the time to digest my information, what I learned, the time when I was doing assignments, I reflect at that time, but generally the program was so intense, so we had no chance to digest the information to accomplish transformative learning. I think that this fact is the same with other learners, other institutions, even for schools as well. That's the problem.
Yes, that's another thing. For example, so do you remember our experiential learning assignment? So what did you do? I forgot.
Yeah, I was doing a piano course.
Yeah, of course. And I attended to like pottery, like uh, 4 or 5 lessons, and so as a learner, so it was a very good chance for me, like to touch something, like to learn something through like experiencing it. So that was one of the assignments that like really helped me, like to support the theory part that we read, that we studied during
Yeah.
the course.
Yeah.
And the other thing was was the reflection paper. So it was like also very good because it gave me a chance, right, to stop and to look back. So what did
Yes.
I do? So what is the difference? So what kind of learner I was in the beginning of the course and at the end of the course. So I tried to like compare my these two learner and educator identities. It was very good. I liked it.
Yeah, the reflection was a good chance to see if what we have learned made a sense or not. Yeah, the experiential learning assignment and the reflection part was helpful for me as well. In the experiential learning part, I actually fully understand about the series, what theory I was applying, and how my motivation happens. And in the reflection part, actually, in this course, I reflect when I was writing blogs. So in the reflection part, I was ready to do that assignment because I reflected before. Yeah.
Actually, I also like the blog part, so more than blog, like the
Yeah.
video part.
Yeah.
So step by step, I divided it into like different topics. Like so, one time I reflected on like the coloring, like my feelings about the coloring of this pottery. And then in one lesson, I experienced, so I don't know how it is called, like this. So there's a machine that you kick it. I think it's electrical kicking machine, something. It was also like a very novel experience for me. And in one lesson, so I didn't use that machine, but like my hands, by using my hands, I like try to make something. So each lesson was completely like new experience. So
Yeah.
each lesson gained me another insight. So into this pottery thing. It was a very nice experience, and it was. I believe that from now on, so when I remember like the years I spent at ADA as a master's student, so this experiential assignment, I'm sure that it is going to be like one of the assignments that I will definitely remember in the future.
Yeah, right, the same. And I have a lot of takeaways from that assignment. I can say that it was the first assignment that I had so many takeaways that I will apply in my career as well. I learned from that assignment. I should motivate my learners when they are at the end of their learning process. It was really important because when I was doing the last parts of my course and I was about to finish assignment, it was nightmare to go to the classes because I didn't have motivation. I understood that we had a lot to do with the motivation when we are like end of that learning process.
And what about this? So of course, we are talking about like this adult learning, the theories and experiences. Uh, so what is difficult or what is challenging for adults in your opinion? So both academic education and also adult learning.
Actually, I have never thought about it, what was difficult for me. Generally, the discussion parts challenged me a lot in the classroom because the content was a little new for me. For example, I have never heard about andragogy. lots of concepts they were completely new for me. Or at the beginning of course, we were learning about different types of learning, informal, like non-formal. It was really difficult for me to differentiate. So the terms that were new for me was a little bit challenging to differentiate. So that's why I had a little challenge in the classroom when we are having discussion points.
So what about in general, like not only in our course, during our course, like generally? So what do you think about adult learners? So I think we also have like adult students, uh, how they are different than the minor students.
Adult
I mean,
learners,
they learn at
yes.
the same pace, or
Yeah.
they are.
To some extent, we are the same. To some extent, we are not the same. The main difference is we need more autonomy. Adult learners need more autonomy. They feel respected when they have autonomy, when they are contributing to the learning process. When we ask their opinion about anything we are adding to our course. For example, in our courses, sometimes instructors asked us to prepare rubrics or to decide which one to do, or to decide even the patterns of group works were really important for us. We were thinking that we are an individual, a respected individual, and we are important there. So that's the difference. I think adults need to be recognized in this perspective more than children. The same is, I think, the motivation. Sometimes people think that they are self-directed, they are independent, and they don't need an instructor, they don't need guide, they don't need motivation. But adult learners needs recognition of their good job and motivation as well. They need to be motivated. They need to know that they're in the right direction. And being an independent learner doesn't mean that you are doing something on your own somewhere. You need to be observed and monitored as well.
Yes. And I also think that like adults, like they are really different. Like they have advantages compared to the minors, but in like some points they are also in the disadvantage. Like especially, so if we consider that so adults are not full-time students, like being a student is not their own responsibility. They have like other obligations, and especially like the time management is like very difficult for them. And one thing, right now I have an adult student, like actually he's very adult, he's like almost 50. And this is also like one of the benefits of this course. So he attended like English like courses with different teachers, but and also he has a very like important position in the government. He told me that he kind of feel like ashamed because so he has this like age complex that I am at this age, but still I can speak English. But my teacher is very like younger than me, so uh, he felt sometimes like shy, like especially in asking his question. Uh, but here, like in this lesson, so I try to give him some academic like independence that I like offered him to choose like to build his own objectives. Like I told him in the very first lesson that to make a list of the objectives that what is it that you are expecting from this course. And then I asked for his reflection, and he said that yeah, okay, it is very good because now I am feeling like more relaxed because he when he built his own objectives, the first thing he came up with the relevant objectives that he believes that if I learn this thing, so I can practically use them in my like workplace or other sphere of the life. And And also the assessment. So I asked him that, so how would you like to be assessed? And he also like came up like the assessment methods that he would like to be assessed. It was very good, and it was good for me because so after this course, this adult learning course, so it was the first time I had opportunity like to practically apply my knowledge. I benefited like in that way, and he also benefited differently.
Yeah.
So these theories, they are like really helpful. So if we understand, like there are different theories, but I believe that each theory has specific points that they are useful in specific settings and situations. So as a teacher, we just need to have this common sense. So which theory or which like characteristics we should use in like this very moment.
Yeah, yeah. Overall, I also met all my expectations. Although at the beginning, of course, I didn't have as clear expectations to call them to say, but I had something in my mind I wanted to learn. But overall, I met all of them. I can say exactly all of them.
Before going to the next question, I think our Zoom time is going out. So if you want, so we can start and then continue again.
Okay.